Hey everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Making the Cut podcast. I'm your host Jacob from Made the Cut, along with my co-host Peyton from Big League Analysis over on TikTok. How you doing, man?
Doing well. I'm gonna drop something on you real quick, just to do it, throw you
Hit me,
off.
man.
I want you to give me one quick life hot take and one quick baseball hot take. Don't even just don't elaborate.
Okay, one quick baseball hot take. The Astros are cooked. They're done.
Okay,
They're
okay,
they're
cooked.
not just their prime. Like they're not making the playoffs this year, and their GM's like kind of delusional for like not selling at the deadline. I hope that he comes to his senses, just because I like having good baseball in Houston. That's as
Okay,
much as I'll say about that.
okay,
And then
and
life hot take. Hot showers are bomb and cold showers are for morons.
okay, I'm cool with that.
What about you, man? You gotta give me two now.
Okay, so I'm gonna give you baseball hot take. I'm gonna go with we should use more adjusted stats than just average and than more than just OPS and ERA plus.
Hmm.
Like diving into it, I feel like the league batting average in like the 80s and 90s was a 270 and above or around there, and the league
Yeah.
average now is in the 240s. So when you're comparing, like, oh, back in the day, these dudes hit 300. Well, now hitting 270 is kind of the same thing, and you see that with how Tony Gwynn's average plus, which that stat exists, by the way.
Yeah.
His Tony Gwynn's average plus when he hit 394 in the strike shortened season was 144. Luis Ariza's average plus last year when he hit 352 was 141.
That's
Now,
crazy.
not saying, not trying, even though when you compare the two, which, and I'm sure we'll maybe talk about that in a bit, is that I think that's an interesting conversation. I think we should talk about more, is how we should talk about averages compared to the league average.
100%. I mean,
Anyway,
Babe Ruth is a great example of that from
exactly.
just his playing days. Exactly. You could do that. He basically was a
Exactly.
300 hitter back in the day.
Mhm.
100%. Now give
And
me your life hot take.
my life hot take is I hate cars.
Oh, riding in them or chasing them or what are we talking?
Anything, I just hate cars, and I know like a big portion of our male audience just tuned out.
100%,
I,
dude.
I I just
Dude, I'm
don't
the same.
I just don't like cars.
I
I don't
agree.
like, I don't know.
Nothing about I'm not like into the models. I don't like honestly, I'm not a big fan of like being in a car or
Same.
kind of like I would prefer to walk. I prefer to bike.
Dude, same page. I'm big like walkable city. Like I haven't been in a car in months and I'm cool.
Dude, that's one thing about being in LA, being out here, that it's like you have to get used to like kind of going a distance in a car because you can't do a lot of walking around here in comparison to like, a more condensed area like New York or even a lot of college towns.
Yes.
All right, dude, let's get into it. Our first segment. Does this take make the cut? You want to throw your first cut out there, please?
I'm gonna do it. And this is interesting because this weekend I was locked on the Dodgers Braves series. I mean, how
Oh
could
yeah,
you not? Look at those
exactly.
two, dude. If you counted, I don't have the exact number, so someone please fact check me. 13 All-Stars on the field at once.
That's crazy,
Something like
dude.
that. Something like that.
Yeah,
Nuts number. So you're basically watching an All-Star game as a series.
100%.
But in that series, Shohei Ohtani, whoa, stole the show. He was 8 for 12, three homers, two stolen bases. He had like he had clutch hits. Unreal. Right now, he leads the AL in average, is tied for first in homers, is in striking distance of RBI. Now, so you see where this is going.
Yeah, yeah.
Does this take make the cut? Shohei Ohtani wins the triple crown.
I I don't think it makes a cut just
Okay.
specifically for one reason. So he's hitting the
It's
crap out of the
hard.
ball, right? He's hitting the
Yes.
crap out of the ball. He's striking out less than he ever has, or at least like one of his lowest rates.
Yes.
He's getting the ball in the air a lot, so he's getting a lot of dingers, especially recently, right? He started out the year being extremely hot in the line drive department. Now he's starting to elevate a little bit.
Yes.
I don't think Shohei Ohtani is the mold of a hitter who's going to win a batting crown over the full 162. I think
Yes.
that at some point you're going to start seeing some of that fly ball luck go down. I know, again, he hits the crap out of the ball, right? So that's the one thing that might help him in this case to win something like a batting title. But we're talking about Ariza is still in the league. He's been heating up recently, right? He's in
Yeah, he's in the
the
NL,
315, something like that.
roughly.
He's going to keep going, and then even Mookie Betts. I would be more comfortable betting that Mookie Betts wins a batting title than Shohei,
I agree.
even if Mookie has not had the highest average in recent years. He's just extremely consistent. Shohei's just not that kind of hitter. He's only hit over 300 once in his career so far. It was last year, so you can argue that he's on the upswing. So maybe that becomes a bigger part of his game this season. But
Sure.
also, I don't think the Dodgers want that from him, right? It's like if he continues with his current approach and he puts up a on base percentage of 400 and he hits 280 and he has 40 homers, they'll be thrilled. If he hits 300 and he has 40 homers, they'll just be over the moon, right? If he hits 50
Yes.
homers, of course, that's to me, that's an interesting discussion. He's gonna hit over 50 homers this year. I think there's a good chance he could have possibly done it last year, but based on the kind of hitter he wants to be and the kind of hitter I think they want him to be as well, I don't see him winning it just because guys like Arraez are in the league where it's like that's their job, right? That's their job to just kind of get knocks here and there, or kind of single the ball all over the field. Even Freeman, I would consider a higher risk to winning the batting title, which he got close last year as well, than
Mhm.
Shohei. But that's I think the biggest barrier to it. He's gonna get his homers, right? RBIs too. He's batting second right now, right? So he's not having the same level of opportunity
Exactly.
to drive in guys
It's
that
gonna be hard
someone
to
like
compete
Freeman.
with. Yeah, well, not even that. Also, a guy like right now, Marcelo Ozuna is in first, and I
Yeah,
mean,
Ozuna
if you
from the
think
Braves.
Ozuna from the Braves is in first, and he has a very good chance of winning the RBI
Oh
title
yeah,
just because he has these guys in front of him who honestly have all kind of been slumping, but they still get on
yeah.
base and get driven in.
Yep. And they're going to get
Yeah,
better. I mean, Olsen,
they're
dude,
going to get better,
I was looking at
dude.
Olsen the other day, and because I was doing a profile on him for the most disappointing players of the year so far, just because he was so monstrously good last year. He has a career high in exit velo right now, and his ground ball rate's not all that much higher than his career averages. His line drive rate is the highest of his career as well, or it's up there. So
Yeah,
there's no reason he shouldn't be absolutely dominating
it'll
right
turn
now.
around for him.
Yeah.
The weird one, I know there's a whole other conversation, is that like Austin Riley's getting blown up by fastballs like
Yes.
crazy,
Big
like
time.
big
Acuna has
time.
been struggling against fastballs this year too.
Yeah, yeah, it is interesting. But
It
like
sure
they
is.
said, again, like if you're new, these takes you throw out aren't necessarily something that we believe. It's more something that's we want to have a discussion about and
Yes, it's a
something we're going to bring to the
conversation starter.
table. Yes.
Exactly,
Okay.
exactly. And hey, speaking of kind of like disappointing players so far in
Okay.
2024, my take is this, and this one I do more so believe in. So Corbin Carroll is the most disappointing player so far in 2024. Does that take make the cut?
It does. And I will say this. I strongly think with Carroll is that that shoulder, something is seriously wrong.
Yes.
He had a major I think he's had two major surgeries on his shoulder. He's had one. I know that for a fact he's had one, maybe a second, but last year it was an issue. Like he had a few moments where he swung his shoulder like out of socket last year and
Yeah.
then was playing the next day. I think he really does have a shoulder issue. I know he had one really bad flare up in late June or July last year, and his
Mhm.
numbers after that were not great.
Yeah.
Yeah, like he was in MVP discussions for the first couple months of the year, and then he still wound it up having an incredible season. Don't get me wrong, but there was a fall off, and he was very good in the postseason. But same thing, like he down the stretch, he clearly had some issues in his shoulder, and I think right now we're kind of seeing that Corbin Carroll has some swing mechanical issues. It's very, if you watch it, it's a bit awkward. And he makes it work. Like he has made it work. But I think now that he's a little banged up, he clearly is banged up. And I think they're going to have to do something. He's betting eighth right now.
Yeah.
Corbin Carroll was arguably, I would say he was the best. I think you probably say Ketel Marte, and I'm not going to argue. He was the best player on a World Series runner-up team as a rookie.
100%.
And now he's betting eighth.
100%.
A month later of baseball, basically, right? So
100%.
I think that take makes the cut. However, I think he has to get either shut down and kind of sent back, and they have to rework things. I would love to be proven wrong. I just think there has to be something mechanically has to change, and his shoulder has to be somewhat dealt with.
So I have a couple things to say about that. So first of all, I think the shoulder is definitely having an impact.
Yes.
I think it's having an impact on his overall game. It's kind of crazy if you look at it. His sprint speed is down over a full feet per second since last season. I think that indicates there's something potentially going on physically, that either it could be with his lower body or he's just trying to overall protect himself a little bit because he is going through some being banged up right now. But I want to throw something out there too. So during his first season with them, right, his first little cup of coffee as a rookie, he had about 115 plate appearances, right? He hit 260, 330 OBP, 500 slug, 830 OPS, almost identical to his OPS last year, last year. So all those numbers were very encouraging for a lot of people looking at him as a rookie, right? But I do want to say, when we even look back then, he faced about 450 pitches that year. This year, he's facing about 530 so far. He has about the same expected slugging this year as he did that year, about the same expected batting average as he did that year, about the same average exit velocity. So I'm not saying that he's not banged up, and I'm not saying it's not affecting his performance. However, what I am saying is this is also partially the kind of hitter Corbin Carroll is. He doesn't hit the crap out of the ball. Even last year when he had a good run for a good portion of the season, his average exit velocity was 90. That's good, right? But that's not in the top 20% of the league. No. His expected slugging last year was 60 points less than his actual slugging mark. His expected batting average was 20 points less. He's not hitting the crap out of the ball. And in today's game, when you're not hitting the crap out of the ball consistently, with just the level that today's pitchers are at, you're opening yourself up for these long, prolonged slumps, right? And it's not like Olson. It's not like Seager, who are still hitting the absolute crap out of the ball and somewhat running into bad luck. I think that this could be potentially the kind of hitter he is, a little bit more slap to his game than maybe we necessarily thought it was going to be like last year. And I think that partially comes back to just those mechanical issues that you're talking about. I think that when you have a kind of a big leg kick that he does, you can find yourself being off time, and that won't necessarily result in a swing and a miss if you're the kind of hitter like he is, where he's got innate bat and ball abilities, but that could lead you to rolling over a lot more, not hitting the ball as hard. And he's got good speed to beat out hits, but if he's not hitting the ball consistently hard on a line, he's not going to have that superstar potential that we potentially thought he could. So I want to see him recover. I don't want to see him get back to last year, but I could see him essentially never really reaching that level again, just because there was a decent amount of luck involved with that.
I will say this about him too, is that he really, like, and we talk about mechanics, he really does have somewhat of a funky swing. I'm not a professional hitting coach, so like I kind of try to avoid to pinpoint, well, you know, it's very interesting, and that doesn't mean anything. Like you saw Ichiro for years, you know, had a very awkward swing from an American point of view, and he was successful. But it is very interesting. And another thing I will point out, and I think this is kind of a pet peeve of mine, is when people automatically say, "Well, it's a sophomore slump." Well, here's the thing.
Yeah.
A sophomore slump, I think people attribute too much to either some sort of higher power or the league figuring people out.
Yeah.
But it's less that. And I think it's more the fact that, like, one, Corbin Carroll played until November last year. He started playing baseball in February.
Yes. He's probably never played that long.
No, definitely not. And he started playing baseball in February last year. He stopped playing baseball in November. Another thing I mentioned is I remember, so Stephen Kwan was on the Just Baseball show before the season started, and he talked about his sophomore slump, because Stephen Kwan didn't have a great sophomore year. He's great right now. He has a bit of an injury. Hopefully he's better soon. Is that the off-season preparation after your rookie season is hard.
Yeah.
Because it's the things like, think about this from Corbin Carroll's perspective. Like, I'm not calling that guy out. I'm not him. But I'm just saying, I could reason with the fact that, imagine you're a rookie, you ran away with Rookie of the Year, you fell just short of a World Series after playing basically 10 straight months of baseball, and now you have to get into the lab in the offseason, and things are still probably a bit banged up. That's why I think it's way too early to maybe give up on him or anything or whatever. 100%. Even this year, he can easily go on a hot streak and it's all back, whatever. However, I do think the batting eighth, the extended slump, and like you said, he just kind of feels off, the sprint speeds down and stuff. Definitely some red flags, and they should probably go under the hood and address some things. However, he's still Corbin Carroll. We saw what he's capable of.
Exactly. And one last thing I want to say about that too is, we get locked into the idea of what we believe a guy's potential is. Last season with Corbin Carroll, I was a big fan. I love him. I've been rooting for him for a long time. I remember when he was coming up the Diamondbacks, I was like, I think this guy can be special. However, 25 home runs in one season for a hitter who's like he is. Maybe in Arizona, that's repeatable just because they have a ballpark where the ball absolutely flies. I
Mhm.
never thought of Corbin Carroll as that kind of hitter. I don't think
Yeah, no, that was
projections were
shocking for everyone.
saying he was that kind of hitter. If Corbin Carroll goes out there and gives you a 280 batting average, 350 on base percentage, 10 home runs, 60 stolen bases, and the defense has been putting up, he's been good right now. He's 84th
Yeah,
percentile in outs above average.
he's a
The
freak.
Diamondbacks should be like over the moon, right? Like we don't need to necessarily say, oh, Corbin Carroll has to bring this huge power presence, right? Ichiro's a great example, by the way, because if you look at their swings in terms of like kind of their bat path and even the way that they almost like start towards first before they even like make contact with the ball, they're kind of similar. And Ichiro was his hero growing up. So there's a chance that he's modeled a little bit of his game after him. If he has a
Yeah.
career that's even like, 80% of what Ichiro's was, that would be all
70, you kidding?
70%. That's a near Hall of Fame career right there. So
Yeah.
yeah, we don't need to necessarily put those same expectations on him that
Yeah, no.
like that are there now because of what he did last season, especially when, again, like I said, there was definitely some luck involved last season. I see him going forward as a more like 20 home run guy. I don't see him growing into a 30 home run hitter. Now with an exit velocity of 90 and an average launch angle of 11. He's a line drive guy. He should be
Yeah,
allowed to like kind of grow into that mold.
I mean, just quickly diving into the numbers a bit more, like last year, he was able to really elevate some breaking balls. 9 of his homers were on that. A lot of his extra base hits. This year, he's a negative launch angle against breaking balls. I think that could also be a part of the shoulder thing, not being able to really drive and elevate. Um, and but yeah, like I just think it's interesting. We'll see how he winds up. He is struggling against four seamers, which he hit the crap out of last year.
You can,
But
and hey,
we'll
hey,
see.
one last thing about this, right? You can make a case for all kinds of expected stats and how they can't
Yeah.
necessarily predict the future. One last little thing I want to mention here. Last year, his slugging percentage on breaking balls, like you said, it's where he hit a lot of his homers, right? 9 of his homers. He had a 528 slugging percentage, it was the
Yes.
highest against all pitches. His expected slugging percentage on those homers or on those versus breaking balls was 395.
Yes.
A little bit of
Yeah.
luck.
It's interesting. Yeah, and it's interesting because the thing with the thing with those expected stats is that people need to realize, especially for a guy like Carroll who's not hitting 470-foot homers, is
Exactly.
that it's a lot of pulled fly balls that like get
Hmm.
over there, which is fine. I mean,
Yeah,
no
I
one
mean,
on no guys made careers out of pulling fly ball
Nolan
homers.
Arenado, man, he beats
Yes.
those every single season. He beats those
Yes.
projections. So you can do that repeatedly. But
Yes. But
those are numbers that
200 point difference is a bit
exactly. And
crazy.
those are
Yeah.
numbers as well that to me are indicative of something like a sophomore slump. Like that explains it, right? Maybe he's not getting as
Yes.
lucky, but not the league's figuring him out. Also, I mean, that's a whole other discussion too, right? Where it's like the league is doing this. Guys, if you don't understand at this point how fast pitchers adapt, there are guys out there who will study like the last 10 hit games of a hitter's performance before every single start. Like their adjustments are being made now at a meteoric pace in comparison to years past. Like
I feel like I see. Yeah, I
they're
kind
not
of
just getting a hold of what he's like weak against. And
then wait to the end of the season to.
exactly, dude. Exactly. All right. You want to give me your next take, man?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it earlier, but I feel like I kind of just want to bring it up again. Have a fuller discussion. Is
Mhm.
Luis Ariz to the Padres elevates their offense and pushes them to be a wild card team. Does that take make the cut?
I'm going to say no. And
Hmm.
for me, I mean, I want to believe in this Padres team. Don't get me wrong. I've been rooting for them every single season, right? I really want to see them actually like do something productive with the roster they've assembled. They did a couple years ago, right? But last year was really indicative to me that they might have some kind of problem internally. Because even this year is a similar thing where it's like they're kind of underperforming what their run differential is. Last year they did the same thing. They're not good in close games. And I think Arise can help with that. I'm not saying that he can't. I'm
Mhm.
not saying they won't go out there and add pieces, but they've added pieces in the past. And they have a hard time finding ways to win. So I think it might be something they need to kind of deal with internally. I don't know if it's a managerial issue. I don't know. I know that there's so many people that make a baseball game happen, right? So there could be any number of problems. But Manny Machado's been banged up all season. I don't know if he's going to be good by that time period. They don't really have an elite hitting core like they had assembled a couple seasons ago.
Yes.
Bogarts is not Bogarts, like at least that he's been in years past, right? I mean, he's slugging under 300 right now. They have a glut of infielders, but is that going to make the biggest difference? Tatis, again, second straight season, he's not hitting like Tatis used to hit. I don't, I don't know if I can see them being hot for long enough stretches to outpace other clubs that arguably have a more full roster at this point.
Yeah, you see, I think the Tatis discussion is really interesting just because like he's he's hitting very like he's hitting from the context of um batted ball. Like he's crushing the ball. Like
He
obviously
is.
there's whiff and stuff in there, even though it's actually not that bad. But like he is crushing the ball. I think Tatis goes on a run that's like crazy. I think
Yeah.
that's gonna happen in the next month or so, where Tatis OPS is over 1,000 for the month of May or June or July. Like it's going to happen. And if it doesn't, I'd be very surprised. He's too talented, and like right, if you look at what he's hitting, how he's hitting, it's due. Like right now, he has a 770 OPS, but like he has 7 homers. You know what I mean? Like I know,
He's
like
performing, and he's
that's what I'm
a
saying. Like
very
he
good
has,
outfielder. He's
and
still
don't
a
get me
very
wrong.
good player.
Listen, a 770 OPS right now is a 25% above league average. What I'm trying to say is, to me, the fact that he already has 7 homers and like the other stats aren't there yet is like he's gonna the balls are gonna leave the yard still, but everything else is gonna start dropping, if that makes
Right.
sense.
I get
So
you.
yeah, I'm big on a Tatis big breakout month coming soon. But back to Luis Ariz, I'm really am fascinated by him as just like a player. I mean, the Marlins are Jesus. I know we spoke about it over text. Like it's
Yeah.
like, come on. Like
They're
you
Rockies level.
I can't
Rockies level.
believe they're like a mix of the Rockies and the A's. Like they're the A's in the sense that they blow it up every time things start looking good. It's
Yep.
like it's like the fourth time it's happened. Because it's gonna happen again, right? So you have obviously first World Series, they blew it up. Second World Series, they blew it up. They have like things promising in the late 2010s. Jeter comes in, blows it up. They make the playoffs. Wow, this is awesome. They're going to blow it up. They traded Ariz already. Jazz is going to be gone. They're going to dump one of their starting pitchers. It's probably going to be Luzardo, I'd imagine. And they're going to like reset it with Yuri, and they're going to keep Sandy, I hope. Jesus, like please keep Sandy.
Yeah,
but,
at least until he's healthy enough to get like a return.
Yeah,
for
exactly. But the point is like that organ, it's very upsetting, right?
It is. But
because you're not really giving your fan base a chance.
No, at all.
That's the thing. Like the A's have a crazy history. Like I think people forget that with their organization is the A's have crazy history. They have this third most World Series titles.
Literally, they had a three-peat in the 70s. Like they were the team to beat back in that era before the Big Red Machine came along. And early 2010s, perennial postseason throughout the 2010s, honestly, especially even towards the end of the decade, they were perennial postseason.
The Marlins
contenders.
have nothing. The Marlins have two World Series that I don't know how
kind of random.
Random. They won a World Series and their World Series hero was like Edgar Renteria, and then it was Josh Beckett. Dude, those are dogs. Like those are dogs, but like it's just so random to think about.
100%, dude.
100%. But no, but like seriously, it's the bigger discussion is the Marlins because it's like what is happening. But
seriously.
the Padres, I really do like Luis Ariz and the Padres again because it's a Ha-Seong Kim walk year, so that gives them an interesting opportunity to let him walk because they're not going to pay him.
No,
you know that, and they're going to have control over Ariz. If they don't trade him for like if he doesn't get traded for like the third straight year. But yeah, I think he he's be hot. He's probably gonna hit 310, 320 like usually does.
Yeah,
and he's at an interesting layer to this offense because they don't have to play him on defense.
Yeah, 100%. And he's
a traffic cone.
Exactly. Yeah, and he is a utility player too. So if you have to stick him out there, you can put him pretty much anywhere on the infield, which is nice. Other than shortstop, keep him away from shortstop. But dude can barely play second. But regardless, so I want to say this though too. So I get where you're coming from, and on paper, I can understand the argument for a Padres postseason run, and I won't be too surprised if they do it. Don't get me wrong. When they were getting hot last year and like on the cusp of it, I wasn't blown away or anything, right? I was rooting for it, but this is the teams that have to leapfrog if they want to make the playoffs under a wild card, right? Either the Braves or the Phillies. I don't think there's a world in which the Phillies take the division with the Braves being in there, but it's going to be one of those two teams is going to be in the wild card, right? Both of those teams have winning percentages over 600 right now.
Mhm.
So they're not going to leap them. There's no way. I don't think so. They have to leapfrog the Cubs. They'd have to stave off the Mets, Reds, and the defending NL champions Diamondbacks, and a Giants team that added a lot of this offseason, have been slumping. They haven't been that good this season, but they do have pieces. And right now they're only 3 games out. They have to hold off all of that. And even a young upstart Nationals team, which has looked pretty good at times this year. I know the run differential is not the best, but they look pretty good. They're 7-3 over the last 10. Do I see them beating all of those other teams? What, 5, 6 other teams for the length of the season when some of those teams have, like, they've shown a propensity to win? Cubs are a great example, right? They haven't necessarily had the most success in like the last few seasons, but they have a roster that knows how to win. They got Dansby Swanson on there, which is absolutely a solid ball player.
Bellinger.
Yeah, Bellinger, obviously, who's, you know,
Talk
hopefully
about
going to be
him
doing
later.
a little better. Shote has been absolutely amazing. Shota Imanaga, absolutely amazing. Justin Seals gonna be coming back here pretty soon. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not sure if, you know, they're
I
gonna
like the
even
Cubs,
hold up
yeah.
the Cubs. Yeah, so
We'll see. Like I think,
it's gonna be tough.
dude, the third NL wild card spot is so cooked, but like
Yeah,
it's like they could slip in there. I think they're gonna flirt with it at least. They
yeah.
have pieces. They have the rotation is like there's guys in there who can make an impact.
Musgrove's been terrible so far. He could be
Yeah.
a
Oh
lot
my
better
God.
in the second
Yeah.
half. That's the hope, I'm sure. I mean, if you look at their budget, they have no excuse not to make it. Same thing for the Mets, right? Where it's like they gotta do some
Yeah.
stuff here in the next few
I
seasons.
do
Or
like.
else, you know, it's-
I will say this. Maybe it's a hot take. I do like the Padres more than I like the Mets here. And when it comes down the stretch, I do like them more. I just, I mean,
I don't know. Honestly, to me, they're almost like built from the same pieces, right? Where it's like they always underperform, it feels like, relative to their expectations. They both have had some real cold players who should get hot here. So it's like I could see it being down to, like, no offense to the fans of these teams, but a battle of the mid towards the end of the season where it's like they got both 83 wins with like a,
dude, we had the
5 days to
Marlins in the
go.
playoffs last year. Like
Yeah,
it's weird. It gets
exactly.
weird. That final wild card spot gets very weird.
Exactly. But, you know, at the end of the day, by the way, I mean, that's so okay. I got another take for you. Does this take make the cut? Okay. Kind of thought of this one off the top, but I want to get your take on it. Divisions no longer mean anywhere near what they used to because of that last wild card spot that forces a team that won their division to literally play in the wild card round.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think the expansion of playoffs also waters down divisions and the fact that since baseball playoffs are so crazy, right?
Yeah.
Because you like the upsets and stuff, because baseball is just weird. Kind of winning your division obviously means a lot to the fans and the team, but at the end of the day, it's like it really doesn't mean much come playoff time, and especially
No, not a ton.
yeah, and it's kind of messed up. So I do agree. I used to be for some reason I used to be a bigger proponent of expanded playoffs, but I feel like because like I get it, maybe it encourages teams to tank less or hold on to their pieces, which is awesome, but it also kind of dilutes it in a way that's
Yes, it lowers the standard. And
yeah,
because of what you said too, where it's like, okay, we take baseball. Baseball's a game played over 162 games.
exactly.
It's a grind. That's the whole nature of it. Come playoff time, it's almost like you buying a ticket to a crapshoot somewhat. You've
Yeah.
seen really, really good teams get bounced really early. I mean, Dodgers every single season. It's not it's not a coincidence with them, but still, you're seeing really, really good teams get bounced every season. You're giving out more tickets to play in this essentially to some degree crapshoot. It does create a circumstance where do you have teams that are gonna, like, there's these Cinderella stories? You do, but it's also how you end up getting the least watched World Series ever, right? Because these teams,
Yeah.
I love the Diamondbacks. Don't get me wrong; they had to claw their way to get there. Okay, the
Yeah,
Rangers,
that's
same
fun.
thing. They had to claw their way to get there. For baseball fans, it was a fun series. However, did the Diamondbacks? I'll throw the Diamondbacks out there because they had 84 wins. Did they really deserve to be there based on how they performed in the regular
Yeah, no,
season?
in the playoffs, yeah, but not like
Ex-
it's weird. Like that's the thing. Like because hey, they did it. Like
they did it. Hey,
that's
no
what I'm saying. Like
disrespect.
listen, they beat the Dodgers and they beat the Phillies. So listen, they deserve to be in the World Series. Like
100%.
sorry, but that's the thing. I feel like this argument gets used by whiny fan bases. It's like
Yes, yes, yes.
yeah,
And
it's
that's
yeah,
yeah,
no, and another thing too is maybe the extra days off from work really hurt the Braves and the
yeah.
Dodgers. No, sorry,
Seriously.
that was yeah, no, but because listen, like I get it. I'm not the biggest fan of the third wild card spot. However, you do have to win. You play the game,
Yeah,
you have to win. Like I'm
exactly.
sorry. Yeah.
100%, 100%. And hey, to some degree, do I really care if baseball goes to a seeded structure, which is to me kind of where it is now, right? I mean, we care way more now about like getting those better records to have better matchups than we do about necessarily winning the division because of that. Do I really care about that? You still have to win, like you said. If you're a really good team and you win a lot of games, you're going to be in a better spot. That's the way that it is. And that's the way it is with basically every other sport too, right? The idea now of a stringent standings aren't, it's not nearly as big as it used to be.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, I mean, I'll throw this out. I mean, if you did, they're never going to shorten the playoff structure for money
no,
reasons.
never.
But even if you did, if you shortened it, it would make the division, like you said, it would make winning the division mean more because it was
Exactly.
because even if your team didn't whatever do anything, it's like, oh, like we won the division. Like that's how it was forever,
Yeah.
you know? So
And yeah, it's different now. Do I think that's a bad thing necessarily? I'm
yeah,
not
we'll see.
necessarily sure,
I
but
think we'll see in
exactly.
the coming. I think we'll see in the coming years. I think last year was kind of just a strange postseason altogether. But if we get again, if it gets if we have an influx of these like 83 win teams in the World Series,
We
one
might start seeing something.
one sorry 100 win teams just win games, but two, then it gets to a point where we might have to be like, okay,
Well, dude, that leads me to like another kind of smaller ancillary question off of that, which is just that do you think the playoffs are going to grow more? Because baseball is going to grow, right? I mean, that's the nature of expansion means more money. Eventually, 100 years from now, there are going to be more teams than there are now by probably a significant margin. I could see at least 5 to 10 more. Hockey is going to 34 teams here pretty soon, and it's kind of inevitable at this point.
that's kind of crazy to
They
think
keep
about
adding them
hockey.
like nuts, dude.
Hockey.
And I mean, same thing for football, right? They expanding bigger markets, all those things. More playoffs, more money. Do you think the playoffs are going to grow again, let's say in the next 50 years or so?
I mean, yeah, of course. I think just how it works. I've maybe this is a weird take, but like I feel like the way baseball standings and everything works down the road needs like a big rewiring. Like you said,
Hmm.
like with seeds or stuff, maybe you maybe this I'm not saying we should do this. I think it's an interesting idea is like maybe move more towards that European soccer
Mm.
strategy because like I've always thought the most interesting thing about baseball compared to other sports is that we have series, right? But the thing that ruins series is the fact that there's even numbered game series. Now, hear me out. Now, you see where I'm going with this. I just don't understand why. Maybe let's say you take away the 4 game series and only make them like 3 game series, or maybe make some 5 or whatever, and the team that wins the series gets like I think series records should matter more. I think that's more
Points.
telling of a
Well, I mean,
team.
dude,
Yes,
almost every other sport
it's,
goes on points
hockey
to
has
some
it,
degree.
soccer has it.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think it's
exactly.
interesting. I think
I
it's
think it's
interesting.
interesting.
I think series records should matter more. I think it's something that's untapped in the baseball world that's going to be tapped into someday.
I agree, and I also think things like run differentials should be a bit more important because it to
Especially
me like
like tiebreakers and stuff.
exactly things like tiebreakers and stuff. Just because there should be a motivation to win by more. I mean, a lot of times you'll see guys essentially like fans check out when games get to blowouts. If you had those things mean more, I feel like it would make the games more engaging, even in blowouts. I mean, yesterday, or I mean, sorry, earlier today, we saw with the Rangers them putting up a 10 spot on the A's in one inning, right? That would mean a
Yeah.
lot more if things like that meant a little bit more. But I mean, those obviously we love baseball. We don't want to see baseball change so dramatically that it's not
Yeah.
recognizable. However, again, sports they grow, they change over time. So
Yeah.
that's inevitably going to come at some point. All right, man. Do you want to get down to the meat and potatoes here? We've done the
Yes,
AL
this
MVP,
yeah.
NL Cy Young Award. Time to
It's
do the NL
NL.
MVP time.
Yeah, we're starting in 2010
2010.
with my goat. This is my guy, and we've discussed this. This is your guy too.
Hell yeah.
Okay, like just jump in to jump into it. The 2010 National League MVP was Joseph Votto,
Joseph
and
Bono.
and he had a 424 on base percentage that year, and he had an OPS over 1,000.
Crazy.
But I'm just saying, so like we're big Joey Votto guys.
Oh yeah.
We're big Votto for Hall of Fame guys. I think on
100%.
over here. Like we've had the discussion many times. I want to throw out I want to throw out there is that so 2010 is Pujols' second to last year in St. Louis.
Yeah.
Well, before he returned. I think it's so funny looking back at Albert Pujols's like stats in St. Louis because he was so I feel like this maybe we don't. I feel like we don't talk about Pujols's prime enough.
Not
Which
at this
sounds
point.
dumb. I really think we don't because that dude was so unreal.
I think that literally this season's a great example of, I mean, not that Votto didn't deserve it, don't get me wrong, but I
Oh
think there
yeah.
was a little bit of Pujols burnout just because
Yeah,
he'd
no,
been
there
that
is.
good for that long. Crazy. He was
Dude,
basically, he was Mike Trout if Mike Trout played first base back then. I mean, that he was unbelievable. And during a time in which, he never got connected to steroids. And a lot of people talk about him being a steroid
yeah,
head or all that,
yeah,
but
there's a weird like yeah, there was like a weird report that like maybe links it. Yeah, I don't know. People
Exactly, but
I
he's
don't
he's
know.
at least assumed to be mostly clean in comparison to the other guys like David Ortiz and obviously guys from that time were sluggers who probably a little bit more likely they did it. But regardless, I mean, I actually wrote in my notes to like make sure to specifically shout out how good of a season Albert Pujols had. To be honest, I think that if Pujols would have won it, I wouldn't have been at all surprised, nor would I like look back at this and say that it was a snub or anything like that. They had very very similar seasons.
Mhm.
Pujols had a little bit more power. Votto had a better on base percentage. One last thing I want to say about this specifically is that Votto stole 16 bases this season.
I
It was his
didn't even
only
peep that.
season. Yeah, his only season where he stole over 10. So actually, like pretty solid. Played some decent defense as well for all that means for a first baseman. But in my opinion, this is an A tier season. We are tier listing these for anyone who's tuning in for the first
Yeah.
episode. We're tier
Yeah, I
listing
agree.
these. I ranked them as well, so I'll get into that at the end. But
For
I'd
now,
say
I throw this in A
exactly.
and
It's
maybe
not
adjust later.
that elite to be an S tier season just because he didn't also have those other components to it. 171 OPS plus, really good. Not quite what some other guys have put up on this list, so I'm comfortable putting it there.
I want to do this is kind of off topic, but I just want to throw this out there. For this is I think something funny that I think we forget about Albert Pujols is that he was kind of a utility guy when he broke into the league.
He was played
And
a
I,
lot of
fe- I
right
feel
field,
like
left
I feel like
field.
we never talk about that. He started 52 games at third base as a rookie and 71 in the outfield. Like that's just so like seeing Albert Pujols play third base is just so strange because because he's one of the best defensive first basemen like ever.
Ever.
Like
Oh
he's
yeah,
really very underrated component to his game is prime Albert Pujols was a beast at first because he
he was.
played played third and he was playing the
Dude,
outfield.
seriously, you know what's funny about that is there's a lot of different like correlations you can have between the primes of Miguel Cabrera and Albert Pujols. Cabrera was a worse overall fielder and a worse overall hitter, but they both were obviously extremely elite. Same thing for Cabrera. Played a lot of first base, third base, and left field during his first few years in the big leagues before eventually transitioning to playing first base full time.
Yeah, before we move on, one last. I just want to throw this out there. I know it's a bit off topic. In 2007, Albert Pujols posted a 2.3 D WAR as a first baseman. Okay,
Crazy.
I just want to throw that out there because that's kind of stupid.
Dude, nuts,
Uh,
man. Good.
okay, so you want to move on to 2011? This is the funny one.
Dude, yeah. So Ryan Braun, 2011, he definitely robbed Matt Kemp, in my opinion,
Yes,
right? He
yes,
robbed
no,
him.
no doubt, no doubt.
But by not the margin that I think some people necessarily portrayed in the past. He had an 7.7 WAR. So about
Yeah,
an 8 WAR, near 346 slash, and 33 homers and 33 stolen bases. I know he got caught a few times. But one of the narratives I've seen a lot of people kind of matriculate about this is that he's a terrible fielder. He was a terrible fielder, right? He had 2 DRS. He was decent back then, right? Especially like in left field. At third base, all time terrible. all time terrible. But as soon as he moved to left, he became a decent fielder for that point in his career, and at a 166 OPS plus. It was a
Yeah,
great all around year. Was it Matt Kemp's season? No. On top of that, he did that. He did it for a team that was like not miles better, funny enough, than the Dodgers. The Dodgers didn't make the playoffs, but they were still okay. The Brewers like kind of they weren't insane, but they didn't end up making the playoffs. But yeah,
I'm gonna throw something out there is that, well, the reason why Braun robbed him is because of the steroids,
okay.
right? Yeah, and like Braun was definitely, and Braun had the worst one because he lied about it, and then like he also like kind of gaslit the guy who like tested him and like accused him of being like discriminating against him or stuff, and really bad, really bad.
I didn't know that. That's
Yeah,
interesting.
no, like I think the story is that whatever he Braun failed a drug test with one of the worst fails from like a testosterone ratio. Like he had one of the he like broke the record for like the most tests on a failed drug test or something.
What?
Like something crazy. But what happened was the guy who drug tested him, he went to go send it to MLB, but it was the post office closed or something. So he waited a day. But since he waited a day, the test was null and void. So Ryan Braun like got away with one of the worst drug test fails because the guy waited.
That's
And
crazy.
but something I want to throw about Matt Kemp is that so Matt Kemp deserved this. However, Matt Kemp is weirdly one of the most overrated fielders of all time.
100%. He
So
won a Gold Glove.
he won two Gold Gloves, and he is atrocious in the field.
He had a negative 0.4 D WAR. Again, for all D WAR's worth, it's not the best defensive stat, but he still was. Go ahead.
He had negative 17 D WAR in his career. He has one, and even if you don't like that stat, like later in his career, I know it's later in his career, he actually had the worst defensive season you'll ever see. And if you don't believe me, go to Baseball Savant, go to his fielding section, right? And you go to his fielding log and it shows like the catch probability chart. Watch all the balls he missed, and it's genuinely hilarious. And I'm sorry, because Matt Kemp's a good dude. He dated Rihanna, you know that?
That's crazy, right? But it's just true.
Dude,
It's true.
like he's an all-timer. I love Matt Kemp, but that dude could not field as well as we remember.
Dude, he reminds me a little bit of Nick Castellanos. And Nick Castellanos had a terrible start to the season, but he's generally known as a guy who's like pretty good at the plate and terrible on defense.
Yeah.
When you think of Matt Kemp, he played 15 years in the big leagues. He had 287 homers, 1,000 RBI, almost 500 career slug, 821 OPS, 121 OPS plus. Those are numbers as a center fielder for a large portion of it. You'd think would come out to 30, 40 WAR, right? 15 seasons, 21.4. He averaged 2 WAR a season. That's how bad his fielding was. But
yeah, no.
Again, he still did deserve the MVP.
Yeah, no, he did.
That's easy.
So this is B tier, right? We dropped it. We're only going to B. Yeah. This is just bad tier.
100%. 100%, dude.
Yeah.
Dude, one of my favorite ones up next. What I think to talk about.
This is one of my favorite ones too. Is so 2012's MVP was one Buster Posey.
Buster Posey, dude.
336 average?
Crazy. From a catcher. Won the batting title. I mean, other than guys like, Joe Mauer, who won it every season, hitting 330 and leading the league is basically unheard of from a guy who takes the majority of his at-bats at catcher. But on top of that, he had great power that season too. He ended up with a 957 OPS, league leading 171 OPS plus. He hit essentially relative to his league with the same level of dominance as Joey Votto did as a great fielding catcher.
Yeah, and the Giants won the World Series that year.
The Giants won the World Series. I was going to say, I mean, they don't know that when they're voting.
Obviously, but you have to include it.
You have to include it. Yeah. And he led the team. He was the team leader. They would not have gotten there without him. I really do believe that. His 7.6 WAR from a catcher? You kidding me?
Yeah, and I also want to throw this out there because I think it's funny is the fact that the voting down the line on this is kind of hilarious.
Dude, it gets
some
bizarre.
of the names like so okay. So like this is the all-time season from Chris Medlin when like they won like 20 straight games in a row with him on the mounds. He had like a 1.57 ERA. Martin Prado, that's crazy. Yeah. Aramis Ramirez in 20 12? He had 50 doubles as a 34-year-old?
That's crazy. He was so solid for a number of years, dude.
Dude, underrated. Underrated. Aramis
Underrated.
Ramirez, Mr. NL Central. Let's give him his flowers.
100%, dude. I to me, S tier season for Buster Posey.
Oh, yes. As a catcher, especially.
Right?
Yes.
Right? You gotta. For me, I had it as the fourth best out of 14 seasons.
Yeah, I like that. I like that.
You know, obviously because he's a catcher, he can't necessarily rack up some of the WAR numbers. He can't necessarily rack up some of the same overall value numbers that other guys can at other positions. But still, you have to appreciate S tier for sure. So moving on to 2013. 2013. What do you think, man? Like, for me, it's kind of hard to know how to feel about this season because it was amazing, really good. All the metrics are good, right? 7.8 WAR. He had a 3.45, which from center fielder, who was a pretty good fielder that season. He won a Gold Glove, but he only had 3 DRS. Probably didn't necessarily deserve that Gold Glove, but you know, he stole 27 bases, but he got caught 10 times, so his ratio wasn't all that great.
Yeah,
you can make an argument for Kershaw this season, to be honest.
You see, speaking of the Dodgers, isn't it crazy? So Hanley Ramirez, right? So this is the year that Hanley was on the Dodgers and he was the greatest player ever for half the season.
Yeah.
He had a 5.2 B WAR in 86 games with an OPS of 1040 and had 20 homers. Like he was going to run like if he went to number 162, that's Hanley Ramirez being Hanley. Like because he always had some issues in his career, like really like fully putting it together, you know, the defense issues and just like stuff.
Oh yeah.
When man, like that's Hanley right there.
And I want to throw something out there. I know next season he had the whole thing with the perfect game. He ruined it. This was the only one of the only seasons in his career. Honestly, his only one past the age of like 27, 25, 26 that he was a decent fielder. He had a 0.5 D WAR that season as a shortstop.
Let's go.
Finished 10th in MVP or 8th in top 10 in MVP voting. He really it was his to lose before he got hurt.
I want
86 games. I didn't know he played 86 games.
Yeah, those stats in 86 games are actually ridiculous.
Wait a second, dude.
Yeah,
10 more pace.
Yeah, what? Dude. Yeah. Well, wait. Another name I want to throw out here is shout out Andrelton Simmons for getting MVP votes with a sub 700 OPS.
Literally, probably we talked I talked about it in a video that you edited. Arguably the best season ever for defensively for a player at that point. Really crazy. Yeah. But to me, I say this is B tier.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, it's an awesome season. I think it kind of represents McCutcheon's career, right? Because McCutcheon's greatness is so solid.
It's
so solid greatness. It's not gonna blow you away, but it's like, wow, that was amazing. It's nothing I think it's perfect. I think a B tier is nice.
100%, dude. 100%. All right, moving on to 2014. So this I was a little hard for you to know how to feel about this one.
Yeah.
Because it's a pitcher season. So automatically on that basis, it's like you want to rate it a little bit lower because it's not really a pitcher's award.
However,
where's
the standout hitter?
So that's a great point. He didn't rob anybody, and we're talking about probably the best season of Kershaw's career, where he threw over 190 innings, 197 ERA plus, over 200 innings.
So okay, so I'm gonna ask you a question because we did the same thing for last time. So right now, do you have the voting open or do you have just a document?
It's just my document.
Okay, so at the bottom of the MVP voting for the NL, the same thing happened as last year. So last year was Hanley Ramirez. That year was Hanley who didn't play the full season but was insane. Troy Tulowitzki this season played in 91 games. Had basically the same, slash line as Hanley, 340 average, 1035 OPS, Coors Field. Had a 5.7 WAR in 91 games because Tulo could field. He actually could field. Yeah, crazy could field. But he would have won that award. But
bro, I want to say shout out Coors Field pre-2018, 27, or 2019 actually, around 2019, 2020 started leveling out a little bit. for its effect on batted balls. Still crazy, but before then, it was like off the charts. Early 2000s, it was absolutely like unfair to even compare numbers. But I want to say, if you had to guess what Troy Tulowitzki's career OPS plus was with a 290, 361, 495, you would think that that number would be in the 130s, right? 130,
Isn't it
140
111?
even. It's 118.
Yeah,
That's how
that's what
much
happens.
playing in Colorado knocks his numbers. Same thing for Nolan Arenado. No, Nolan Arenado, literally the entire time he was in Colorado, never had a season with a over 140 OPS plus.
Yeah,
Had,
even though he had
led
like
the league in homers 3
38,
times.
yeah, he had 40 homers or something. Yeah,
Crazy.
yeah,
That
it's crazy.
field is.
Yo, shout out Jonathan Lucroy for finishing fourth. That's my guy.
Is there another great catcher season? And
Yeah,
yeah, you gotta love.
but yeah, but back to Kershaw. Like this is one of those seasons where, like we said, it's an S tier Cy Young season.
Yeah,
However, like there is literally no like if you look at all these MVP seasons, like down the line, because I have the voting up.
yeah.
You could literally make the argument for obviously at the time the way like MVP narratives work, not really, but a lot of these guys had very similar seasons. Uh,
Yes.
so Stanton got a good share of the first place votes. He had a 950 OPS, he had 37 homers in
Oh yeah.
145 games. However, I don't I kind of like the Kershaw getting the award here, but I would say it's A tier, not S, even though it's an S tier pitching season.
For me, it's so on the threshold. I had this my fifth best season. I have it actually a
Mhm.
little ahead of Stanton in 2017, just because he was overall like his overall WAR 7.9 was great. But I mean, Kershaw basically almost had a 9 as a pitcher.
Mhm.
To me, the question I was asking myself was like philosophically, what pitcher season could be better than this where MVP is won, right?
That's
And
fair.
that's where it's difficult because it's like, okay, this is the pinnacle of a season you can have as a pitcher. To me, I have to give this S just because if this isn't S, then there is no season, in my opinion, that could be S. I mean, you can make an argument maybe prime Pedro just because relative to like the steroids and everything, but
Yes.
to me, a 1.81 FIP. I mean, like, dude, over 200 innings. I'm also a big pitching guy. I was a pitcher, so I was like, I probably
You're
a little
lefty.
partial
You're a
to
lefty,
that.
right? You're a lefty, right?
I'm a
No?
righty. I'm a righty.
You are righty. I don't know why I thought you were a lefty.
I give off lefty energy. Everyone always assumes I'm a lefty, but regardless, I wish I could throw as hard as I used to throw as a lefty. I could actually like went to a good college, but regardless, dude, I'm gonna have to give this S tier, but it's on the threshold, and I don't at all fault you for putting it A tier.
How you see, because I just hesitate when it comes to pitchers winning MVPs, but like he had to. Like that's the thing, because it's not like
who else we gonna put?
that's the thing, because it's so I'll concede the S, but maybe we can revisit it at the end.
That's fair. That's fair.
So this next one though is an S tier.
Oh yeah. Oh, hands
Yeah.
down. Hands
Yes.
down.
This is like so the funny thing with Bryce Harper, before his Philly tenure, and even once he was in Philly, right, is the fact that he was just so, I even don't want to use the word inconsistent, even though it kind of does work. It's just like he showed the ability to post an OPS over 1100 with a 9.7 WAR, and then just, post like a 120 OPS
Yeah.
plus the next season. So
Streaky, but that's the thing too. A lot of people
yeah.
a lot of people talked about like, oh, he's disappointing, he's overrated. I mean,
No.
obviously Foolish Baseball has an iconic video talking about how
Yeah.
he's actually somewhat underrated. The thing was, his bad years were great years for most other guys. However,
Exactly.
this season, to me, it's like, imagine if you took Mike Trout and stuck him in the NL for a season and then made him healthy in his prime. Like that's not, he had a 198 OPS plus. That's as good as Mike Trout's ever had in a season.
Exactly.
Batted, for all the old heads, he batted 330. For all the new age guys, he had an OPS, like you said, over 1100, 42 homers. And by the way, 6 DRS in the outfield, including 2 in center field. Not known as a great fielder throughout his career. He was a great fielder this season and almost had a WAR at 10. If you told me about like Bryce Harper's profile as a Major League Baseball player, bat first, played right field, even in his prime, was not known for being the best fielder, didn't steal a lot of bases,
Yeah.
you would never say you get near 10, right? You assume he's like an Acuna type player, right? Where it's like Acuna steals obviously more bases, but Harper was a little bit better of a hitter. You'd think it was around like 8, right? Which is really great. I mean, that's MVP
No,
levels nearly.
but
But a 10, basically a 10
yeah.
more season. Nuts. To me, this is the best season of any
Yeah,
of the
this is
NL
S tier.
MVP.
Yeah,
This
this
S
is.
tier easily.
But what's crazy though is that like he did this at 22.
22.
Listen, for context. I'm turning 22 in 3 months, 4 months. I don't know.
Dude, I'm 23. I just turned 23.
Dude, 22 years old.
22
Sorry,
years old,
that's just so crazy to me. Because
dude.
the thing is, right? Because while like you said, like the defense this year actually was fine. Like it's not like whatever. But he posted an almost 10 WAR basically with just the bat. Because as a 22-year-old, that to me that's nuts. Because even Trout, when he had those 10 WAR seasons as a young player, like defense was baked into that, right?
Oh, and he's center field, right? So it's like
exactly.
Harper, he played a little time in center field, but most of his time was in right. So positional scarcity wise, that really took him down in terms of his overall value. Dude, I mean, 334, basically, he almost had a 3.57 season.
Absurd, man. Yeah. S tier.
2016. Moving on to 2016. This to me, it's another year. The NL is different than the AL, right? AL, almost every year there was a really standout guy. And if there wasn't a standout guy, there was a standout guy who got snubbed a little bit. The NL is like, it reminds me a little bit of 2013 and honestly 2014 too, where it's like, who really would it have went to? I mean, Chris Bryant's 146 OPS plus is the lowest pretty much by far of anybody on this list in terms of OPS plus, even lower than McCutchen, right? Who was a center fielder, hit 21 homers. He had 39 homers. That's great, obviously, for a third baseman, 7.3 overall WAR. Again, very good. 292, 385, 554. Again, better than solid, not quite elite. But you know the second place finisher was?
It was Daniel Murphy.
Yeah. Like 25 homers and 4.5 WAR.
Yeah, but
like not.
And I'm saying, like,
no one really got snubbed. Like it was just not that good of a year.
This was just a mid-year. I'm like, I don't like using the word mid when talking about MVPs. Like he obviously was amazing, but like this is a mid-year. Like for the MVP award. Like he was awesome, and the Cubs won the World Series that year, and I actually made a deep dive on this. He was one of the last MVPs to actually play amazing in the postseason. Yeah. Funny enough, because MVPs since Chris Bryant have been really bad in the postseason. That's crazy. As a regular season thing, like last year, like if you pull up, like this is basically what Juan Soto did last year, and he was 6th in MVP voting.
Yeah, 100%. And it's like, again, he wasn't the best fielder as well. I have this marginally above McCutchen just because I do value overall hitting a little bit more than kind of mediocre numbers in center field, defensively and stuff like that.
But easy B tier though.
Easy B tier. I had it as 11th overall out of the 14. And then you throw in a COVID season and a Ryan Braun needle season, that makes it second worst.
Yeah.
And then 2017 again, it's like we kind of jockey back and forth where it's like, now this one was really good and there were really good candidates.
But 2017 is a weird one because you see 59 homers, you automatically say S tier. However,
yeah, not really.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Who are you voting for the choice in this season, Stanton or Votto?
I'm voting for Stanton. Because Votto was amazing. He was the best. I think Votto arguably was the better overall hitter. I
mean, he was. Like, he definitely was.
Batting average, on base percentage. However, something a lot of people don't talk about, they're just kind of become a bit of a debate in post with this. Stanton still had the league leading OPS plus at 169. Votto did not take him there. So overall, if you want to look at kind of relative to the average hitter, Stanton was at least comparable to where Votto was if you take into account his outsized power.
Oh, of course, he was.
He had 1,000 OPS, right? He also was a decent fielder. And to me, I think that's what, if you're going to make a really analytical argument, that's what could break the tie, just because as a first baseman, you have to blow the socks off of everybody if you're going to win an MVP, just because you only offer really one thing, right? Even if you're a good fielding first baseman, unless you're Paul Goldschmidt, Christian Walker level fielder, you're not making a huge consequential difference. A lot on you could for most teams, you could throw one of those like dummies over there, like punching dummies, and put a glove on it, and it's about the same defensive value as most of the first basemen. So Stanton played decently in right field, and that made it, to me at least, makes a pretty big difference in relation to his overall value. And then, yeah, the 59 homers. Yeah, I'm a little bit biased. It was post steroids, 59 homers. Nuts.
Yeah, something I will throw out there because this is kind of funny to me is that a player who the best hitter in baseball this year to me was a guy who really struggled to get votes because he played in both leagues. So 2017 JD Martinez, if you guys don't remember, was like the craziest power hitter ever once he went to Arizona. In 62 games for the Diamondbacks, he had 29 homers and an OPS over 1100.
Actually nuts.
Yeah,
Like, he literally turned into Babe Ruth.
The thing is, though, he still got MVP votes, even though he only played whatever games. But something funny about this season, outside the fact that Archie Bradley got MVP votes this year, is that Stanton and Votto had the same amount of first place votes.
Yeah, it was the secondary voting that broke that tie.
Yeah, he only beat him by 2 votes. He only beat him by 2 voting points. It's like one of the
That's
closest. I think the closest one we've seen so far, at least.
That's absolutely not. And again, I would not have been mad if it went to either guy, right? For me personally, if I had to cast a vote, I would have been to Stanton, just because, like I said, I think that kind of like tie-breaking scenario there is, important to me personally. But I think you make a decent point that JD Martinez had a pretty good chance because he was about as productive as those other two guys at the plate.
He just didn't play in the NL.
He didn't play in the NL.
Year.
I mean, his overall numbers as well is because he was actually still playing the field a lot at that point. We're pretty like mid in comparison to those guys.
Yeah.
He ended up with a 4 WAR basically, but dude, 690 slugging percentage.
Yeah, no, nuts.
690.
No, really nuts. Like, I don't think we talk about that enough.
But I will say too, we're not necessarily talking about the juice ball era starting in 2017 because, it got crazy. It got worse. But when you throw up 29 homers in 62 games with a 741 slug, an 1100 OPS, and your OPS plus is only 170. That was a crazy run environment back in 2017, man. Overall.
Oh, nuts. Yeah. I think and we're going to talk about that with the next guy who's kind of seen as a juice ball merchant based on what's happened.
Yeah.
Post.
Yeah.
And that is one Mr. Christian Yelich, who won the. So something funny about this. Okay, first let me just read out the stat line. He batted .326 in his first year in Milwaukee after they dumped him for a package that I'm gonna read you the package because it's actually hilarious because it's one of the worst trades like I've ever seen. Even though the only saving grace for the Marlins and what's it called? And Jeter in this trade is that Yelich has unfortunately not aged the greatest. However, the return for Christian Yelich was Lewis Brinson, Isan Diaz, Monty Harrison, and Jordan Yamamoto. Do you want me to read you what they're doing right now per Arm Layton?
I have no idea, dude.
Lewis Brinson is playing in the Mexico League. Isan Diaz is playing what's it called? Indie ball. Monty Harrison is playing college football.
What?
Yes.
What? He went back to college?
Yes, he's committing to Arkansas to play college football. He's old. He's 20, not old. He's 28 years old. He's playing college football. They traded Christian Yelich for a college receiver.
That's actually bizarre.
And Jordan Yamamoto is the head baseball coach for a high school. Now, not taking away from any of those 4 guys. They're doing awesome things. They're still playing ball. One's playing college football, and the other one is giving back to his community. Good for them. However, Marlins, how do you guys not have anything nice?
Dude, seriously. Basically, they had Yelich, Ozuna, Stanton.
Yeah, no, it's really bad. But here's the thing. So this season is like not the greatest MVP season. But it's awesome. It's awesome.
It's amazing.
It's an awesome season. But it's not the greatest. So like, okay, here's my question. We have the precedent for Kershaw.
Yeah.
Does DeGrom deserve the MVP this year?
See, I think in post he does 100%. When we learn about like in kind of, I think a lot of people just assumed that baseball is moving in this direction of crazy offense and power. That it was just the evolution of the game, right? So there are
Yes.
going to be a few guys like DeGrom, even like Kershaw could potentially fight against that because he actually has a really good ground ball rate for his career for a power pitcher. Guys like Scherzer, power on power, can overpower guys. But overall, baseball is going to move in the direction of more and more homers and all these things. What we learned in post, of course, was that MLB was probably using a bit of a different ball back then. Things have definitely changed since they kind of got out of that a little bit and had to probably switch back. So what DeGrom did becomes even nuts, like nuttier. You can literally like make a case that with that considered, it competes with like the Pedro Martinez seasons in terms of like what he did is like in the same league of improbable as what Pedro did, just because things were so juiced back then.
Exactly.
So in post, I think he probably deserved it. However, if he would have gotten it this season, I think that would have been very, very interesting just because, again, people didn't know at the time that this wasn't, this wasn't just the nature of the game. So I think he
Listen,
probably
okay.
deserved it.
DeGrom had a 9.9 WAR. Pitching WAR is goofy, but I'm still out there. And he had a 170 ERA over 217 innings.
I mean, it's the
I
best season since Pedro.
I so like this season is awesome. However, I lean I lean B tier.
You lean B tier. I can't go all the way down there. I think A
I
tier
think
just
A
because
I think
overall.
yeah, I out of respect, I want to give I want to give him I'm trying to like anticipate what we have coming forward.
Right. Because that's a big factor. And this is why the NL is so much more controversial, is like the slam dunk nature of this. If you really think about it, what's the real difference between Christian Yelich,
Okay.
2018, Chris Bryant, 2016?
A. No, I'm thinking A, just thinking about what we have coming up.
Right. And see, that's kind of like, if
Yeah.
that's a B, then like the next couple are going to be like, interesting. So yeah, I agree. I think that's A. Um,
This
so
one
moving on, 2019.
is 2019 is Cody Bellinger. The guy that had this absurd 47 homer, 1035 OPS season with good defense.
Yeah.
And it was just absurd. I think Christian Yelich would have won the award if he didn't blow out his knee on a foul ball
Yeah.
late in September.
It would have been very close. And if he would have finished strong too.
Yeah, because he had an 1100 OPS, but he kind of, hurt himself. What's funny about this season though is that while Cody Bellinger was awesome, it's really carried by how absurd his opening month was.
Yes. That's a
Because
decent factor.
no, it's the biggest factor because he in April he hit 431. I said 431 by the way. 14 homers. 14, yeah, I said that. And a 1398 OPS to open the year. And guess what? In the opening month, he only struck out 15 times, which, is kind of crazy. So in the first half of that season, he hit 337 with an 1124 OPS. In the second half, he hit 263 with a 917 OPS. Very good, but like,
not the same thing.
200 points lower. Like that was the first half of that season. He was literally the most like unreal player ever. And then the last 3 months of the year, he didn't. His best batting average was 290, 281, still great. And his best OPS was 952. Again, still great, but like that opening month really carries things. For example, pulling the total OPS plus, which is basically so like no OPS plus is league average. Well,
yeah.
Total OPS plus is player average. So if it basically is like, hey, Cody Bellinger was this good that year, like let's compare this month to his usual production. According to that, April of that year accounts for 67% of his overall production, basically. And then the rest of the months are below that.
That's absolutely nuts.
Below it, yeah.
Absolutely nuts.
He had He had a 3 F war in April.
That's bizarre. To me, this is where looking at things like a full season in baseball is so difficult, right? Because it's like when you do what you do means so much in the overall scope of things. Honestly, like you said, probably Yelich was going for it because he was finishing a lot stronger than Bellinger was, and that definitely means something in baseball, right? That recency bias plays in there, and you kind of have, like you said, the exact opposite of that for Bellinger, right? Because he had
Yes.
started strong and was withering over time, not to a terrible degree, right? It wasn't Aaron Judge 2017 where he had that insane start, was terrible for a while, and then got back to being pretty good. This literally was like he was still pretty good, but not anywhere near what he was. I I have maybe a hot take on this whole season overall, right? Because the thing is, my impression of this is almost like if you break down any really, really great season, there's almost always a stretch that if you took it out would derail the entire,
Of
scope of
course.
the things.
Of course.
Stanton is August. He hit like almost 20 homers in August. If you take that month out, he's obviously not going to be close to MVP voting. So I almost disregard that a little bit just because to me, the overall numbers are kind of what I'm looking at from that perspective. And this season, this is a little controversial, but hear me out. This season, he was kind of Mike Trout for a year. He had 8.6 WAR at the height of the juice ball era, which obviously that plays in there a little bit. 3.46 slash, barely struck out, 47 homers, and he played great defense in center field. He had more overall WAR than Mike Trout did, and his pace was about the same as if Trout had played a full season. About the same. And on top of all that, he stole some bases, 167 OPS plus at the height of the juice ball era. This was the year. This was Alex Bregman 40 homer season, right? So that should tell you everything you need to know. I have this as an S tier season because he's a center fielder. If he's in right field,
I agree. I think it's S tier, but sorry, like knowing who Alex Bregman is now, the fact that he had that much power is, dude.
anyone who was, because the thing is, again, there was an argument at the time. It reminds me of like sticky ball era, or basically any era like this in baseball, even like steroid era, where guys were like, "Oh, they're eating their breakfast, right? Balanced breakfast." That's why they're playing at the levels they're playing, right? When we look back, it really is ridiculous. Like it actually is incomprehensible that people were saying, like having arguments like that. I think a lot of people back then with the juice balls were a little more open to it just because it was that nuts. But some of those seasons, especially like when you look at guys who, Eduardo Escobar, who has never had elite like peripherals to play, had 36 homers that season.
I think the funniest thing about, like you said, you brought up Eduardo Escobar, which is so funny, but like he had a 6.4 F-WAR from 2018 to 2019, like the 2-year stretch, and that's like close to Bryce Harper. Which is just like it's just so no, but like it's really funny because like Bryce Harper was kind of bad, not bad. Was like not good for his standards during the juice ball era.
Yes.
He's like so funny to me.
I know certain players.
Trout
was relatively unaffected.
Yeah, but like Bryce Harper weirdly like wasn't like you would think a guy like Bryce Harper would have a Bellinger type season, but he didn't. Like it was so, like he had a 130. Bryce Harper's WRC plus from 2018 to 2019 was 130. Like,
dude, nuts, dude. I want to throw out one more guy. When I say his name, you're gonna be like, "Oh my god, yes." Eugenio Suarez hit 49 home runs in 2019.
He was that guy. Like
49.
Dude, okay. So from 2018 to 2019, Eugenio Suarez had the second most homers in baseball. Like, what? That's
hey, I'm not. Since then, he's hit 31 homers 2 times. He's 22 last year. I'm
no,
not saying he's a bad hitter. Like
he's pop.
But he doesn't have 40.
Juice ball, Great American Ballpark.
He almost had 50 home runs.
Yeah. Juice ball. Dude, Great American Ballpark is a boombox.
Absolute bandbox. And especially exactly
boombox. Bandbox.
Dude, seriously, but especially in that era. So yes, we agree it's S tier. However, a bit bizarro still. A lot of these seasons are bizarro, like in terms of like the overall peripherals of it. Now,
do you want to be quick?
Go ahead.
I think we should try and be quick with 2020 just because it's so goofy.
Oh, yes,
Like,
yes, yes.
okay.
So S tier
Freddie,
season.
yeah, S tier. So, okay, so I'm gonna get ahead of it because we set the standard last time with the Cy Young, and I feel like it's the same thing.
Yes.
So Freddie Freeman, although he was incredible this season, I feel like it has to be B tier. Like I said, 60
Yeah.
games, and like for example, like Juan Soto was ridiculous that year. Mookie Betts ridiculous that year. Like Manny Machado was absurd. We're talking about a season where Mike Yastrzemski was 8th in MVP voting. This is an unserious season. Dom Smith was 13th.
Yeah.
Ryan Tepera got MVP votes.
Yeah.
And we're trying to be like talking about this as it's like a serious stop.
Come on, man.
I'm
Come
sorry.
on,
Like,
man.
yeah. Yeah.
Let me say this. Do you know what Cody Bellinger would have been batting if he had played in 2020 with his 2019 numbers? He would have been hitting roughly around 380 by that point in the season. He would have had a slugging percentage
Oh, okay.
of
Sorry.
almost 800.
Sorry. I was sorry. Okay, sorry. I was confused by your question. Now it makes sense. Yeah, that's crazy. Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's
at
like
first it's like, wait, what do you I was like, oh, okay, no man. That makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah, no,
exactly. It's
crazy.
like if we're going off of stretches here,
Yeah, it's crazy.
come on.
Dude, yeah, no. It's the Ryan Tepera got MVP votes. So
Exactly.
that's all you need to know. Wait,
B tier.
Ryan Tepera got MVP votes with a 3.92 ERA.
I think that was I think was that a mistake? I remember that someone cast a vote. I think it might have been that season where it's like they hit the wrong button. They put the wrong bubble in. Moving on to 2021. So now this one to me is again another instance how bizarre the NL was over this period. So first thing, 179 OPS plus, insane, better than a lot of the guys we've talked about so far. His defense was horrid, -6 DRS, one of the worst defensive seasons we've ever seen from an MVP. To me, the most stunning fact about this year is that the next 7 guys behind him for MVP all beat him in WAR.
No, so that's fascinating about this season too, and also the fact that Brandon Crawford, oh my,
dude,
is that
what a season?
No, like it really is interesting. So this is one of Juan Soto's best defensive seasons. Tyler O'Neill, oh my God, Austin Riley had like his real breakout. Like like you said, it's really interesting because Bryce Harper had an unreal summer. That's what won him the award. And the other thing with WAR, which to me matters, actually scratch that because Tatis had a 6.6 in 130 games. Crawford played 138, so actually a bunch of guys had less games than him. I feel like Harper easily won this award, but like I feel like it should have been a bit closer.
100%. And to me, honestly, like I do see a little bit of a rob just because if I threw these numbers at you and I was like, okay, 313, 465, 534, 7.1 total WAR.
Yeah.
You 111 runs for all that matters. More walks than strikeouts. You'd think that was an MVP season. 1,000 OPS. Harper had slightly better OPS. He did. 1,044. Great hitting season. No one's debating that. He had a 3.46. But overall, it wasn't as good a season as Juan Soto. Dude, Fernando Tatis Jr., why aren't we valuing home runs as a shortstop? 42 dingers as a shortstop in 130 games. He had a better WAR than Harper. He played 11 less games than him.
Yeah, that's the thing. I feel like balancing the games played, because I feel like we've talked about this. And it's the same thing with pitchers. I want availability. So like I would give the tiebreaker to Harper maybe over someone else if they played substantially more games. That's why I'd go with Soto here.
Yeah, 100%.
Because
to me, this was Soto's to lose.
Because he played in more games. He had the crazy slash line. Obviously, the OPS was worse, but like I don't know. I feel like I would have gone. Yeah, I mean, listen, the Phillies didn't even make the playoffs either. So like, there's not even like a team success
factor. That was almost like people were so rooting for a Harper comeback to like grace after that 2015 that I feel like it almost like kind of got away from him a little bit.
Yeah, I feel like this was kind of a narrative award in a way.
Yes.
Not that because listen, Bryce Harper was incredible this season, but like I feel like we kind of wanted to add something to his legacy in a way.
Yeah.
In a way, like subliminal. Whoa, what the word was that? Like I think subconsciously
Yeah,
it was kind of like, and even though I could see the argument for him winning MVP, I think the voting share is kind of cooked.
I
Like
agree with
he
that,
kind of
dude.
ran away with it in a way.
Dude, shout out Lance Lynn for a 163 ERA plus over 157 innings.
Shout out Lamont Wade Jr. for getting MVP votes.
That's actually nuts, dude. That's actually nuts.
Shout out my boy Lamont.
B tier. We agree.
Yes, I agree.
100%
Yeah,
B
I
tier.
agree.
The most B of B tier. Honestly, the only seasons that are less B tier are Roidman and then COVID Boy. All right.
COVID Roid Man and COVID Boy, the worst
Exactly. The
superheroes.
Adventures of Roidman and COVID Boy. All right.
It's the worst superheroes of all time.
Dude, yeah. Paul Goldschmidt, 2022.
Whoa.
To me, this is the same thing as
This is such
Votto.
it is, bro. It's fun. This season is so funny because like, oh, like you could do that, Paul Goldschmidt. Like,
Seriously,
okay.
right? At that age, too. Because the people had kind of written him off a little bit as like a declining player. And it's like, okay, he had a great peak, but he never was quite MVP worthy. I don't think there was any seasons where people were like, oh my God, he got snubbed for MVP. But this was a season that I don't think anyone really saw coming, especially with, like I said, a little bit of declining peripherals in the years past. But a 3.4, near 3.46, 3.45, 177 OPS plus, and pretty great fielding for first baseman. Again, for all that matters, right? Amazing season for a hitter, quite simply.
Yeah, yeah. Like I feel like this is just Paul Goldschmidt doing this like at age, what is this? So would his age 34, 5
Yeah,
season?
34 season.
30, yeah. And like it's funny though, because the guys behind him, it was very close. Like I think Goldschmidt gets it because for me, if the wars are similar, I take the best hitter.
Right.
So yeah, and I think he's easily the best hitter of him, Machado, and Arenado. To me, it's really interesting that Machado got way more first place votes than Arenado.
Yeah. I guess kind of that team thing.
Yeah, no, I see the narrative because Tatis didn't play. So like, I get the narrative. Even though I would say Arenado a better season because they're the same hitter, but Nolan's a better fielder. But
Yeah.
I get the narrative, him leading the team with Tatis, being irresponsible. So yeah, I get that.
Dude,
What do you think?
unfortunately, dude, Paul Goldschmidt this season. Like, I mean, to be honest, that's about, I think, all you can say about that. Amazing season. Oh my God, shocker. Hall of Fame first baseman has Hall of Fame hitting season.
Can I
To
throw something
me,
out there though?
go ahead, go ahead.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I want to throw something out there. Is that Paul Goldschmidt from ages 25, right, to
Yeah.
20 to 33, right? So 25 is the first time he finished top three in MVP voting. He finished second. 2021 he finishes sixth. So in that time frame, he averaged a 395 average a season, obviously, with a 921 OPS and like 28 homers a year. He did that basically every year, and he finished second in MVP voting twice and third once. Like the fact that he bust out his best season at 34, just like kind of randomly, to me is just wild. And this is interesting because this MVP right here kind of cements the fact that he could be a Hall of Famer.
100%. To
Like
me,
I
yeah.
think without the MVP in 2022, I feel like the Hall of Fame discussion for Goldschmidt is very different. I know that's not like a hot take because obviously an MVP does a lot, but I think this really kind of puts him over the edge in a different way.
I agree. And that's kind of low key a little bit of an issue with the whole system because it is a little arbitrary. But I completely agree with you just because if you had told me before this season, Paul Goldschmidt will probably never see 400 career home runs. Paul Goldschmidt may never see 2,000 career hits. Paul Goldschmidt may have an OPS at the end of his career of, 880, 870. I would have said you're crazy. I would have said you're crazy. Last year, 810 in a full season. I mean, at 35, I'll take that. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
This season has just been brutal, horrible. 273 slugs so far. Just a lot of big guys who like had really good seasons years past been struggling, but we're looking at a guy who might be out of the big leagues sooner rather than later, especially relative to what we all thought. So I really hope this isn't the last we've seen of him. But like you said, if that ends up being the defining factor of, okay, that's what gets him over the edge to being a Hall of Fame first baseman,
Mhm.
I'm happy he got it 100%. I think he deserves it, period. Just
Oh
because,
yeah. So
dude,
the average Hall of Fame WAR for a first baseman is 64.8.
yeah, and I get that.
Goldschmidt's at 61.4, which is very close. The average 7-year peak is a 42 WAR. Goldschmidt is at 45. So when it comes to there, he's on the line of the average first base Hall of Famer. But
Yeah,
again, we'll see.
yeah, we'll see. I will say this is just almost like in a Hall of Fame like mini discussion, but just I love things like Jaws and stuff like that for looking at Hall of Famers. One of the things with
Yes.
a position like WAR that's really off skewed is basically everything before roughly around like 1950, because like Lou Gehrig is in there, right? And
Yeah.
and got Hall of Fame first baseman from that time, Hank Greenberg, who really heavily skew those numbers just because WAR used to be a different stat. Well, okay, WAR didn't exist back then, but still, when you look at those things like that,
Yeah,
it
it's hard
does.
to calculate.
Exactly. But regardless, I have this season in A tier. To me, it's a solid A tier. It's like Joey Votto's 2010. Like I couldn't see putting it in B, but I don't have a ton to say about it.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think an A is fine. Because
And
I
then
think
we
the next
good.
yeah, because the next guy, to me at least,
And this is where we
is
get into a really interesting conversation here. So Ronald Acuna Jr., 2023. There's obviously all the numbers I'm sure we'll get into. 3, 4, nearly 6, 41 dingers, 73 stolen bases, blah, blah, blah. Overall WAR of 8.2. This one just happened. People are going to know about this. Do you think this is an S tier?
I do.
Yeah, I agree. See, I'm glad we agree on that. Okay,
Okay,
the
I
counting
I
stats matter.
I do. No, what's funny though is the one of the reasons I do is less because of the sheer stats, because I think we all know that. Like
Mhm.
we all know he scored 149 runs and stole 73 bases and had 41 tanks. Like that's the thing. I feel like, but I feel like those numbers kind of distract us from a lot of the other incredible things he did. But
Mm.
I want you to, I'll let you speak first.
Dude, yeah, 100%, man. 337 from a hitter who's producing at that level, especially relative to the kind of like a degradation overall in batting average in the league. Crazy. He led the league in on base percentage, something a little bit like low key. We don't really talk about that. He led
Yeah.
in a league with Juan Soto, Freddie Freeman, Mookie Betts. He led the league in on base percentage. That's a pretty big feat. And 73 stolen bases. Listen, take away half of them because the rules changed. Half of them that still would have been almost a 40-40 season. And he almost had
Yeah.
40-40 before. So it's still incredibly impressive. And again, it's like for all the advanced analytics in the world out there, right? 8.2 WAR, obviously great, little worse than like Cody Bellinger in 2019, obviously worse than Harper in 2015. Kind of like a little bit similar to someone like McCutcheon in 2013. I can throw that aside and say, hey, listen, this guy hit 337 with 41 homers and 73 stolen bases. I'm in awe. It doesn't always have to be at advanced numbers.
Yeah, I think here's the thing, right? I do think the stolen bases do skew people's perception on the season.
Yes.
Like I think we've spoken about that in the past. So some people say it's better than some people say it's better than like Aaron Judge's 2022.
Exactly.
I think you're kind of cooked for saying that. But
Yes.
I will say that if Mookie Betts finished September strong, I do think he could have I think he could have won the award.
Yes.
But once Mookie kind of had that weird September, it was easily and obviously Acuna's award. I think for me, one of the most impressive things about him was how hard he was hitting the ball.
Yes.
So he had 138 hits that were um he had 138 hits that were over 100 miles an hour. Isn't that
Absolutely. Dude, and that's another
isn't
thing
that
too. By the
crazy?
way, over
Sorry,
200
sorry. That's
hits.
a Statcast record, by the way.
That makes sense, but it's incomprehensible. That means that that's that's 2 out of every 3 games he had a hit over 100 miles per hour.
Yeah.
Not a hit, not like a blooper. A hit over 100 miles per hour. That's just insane.
Yeah,
Absolutely
no, he was
crazy.
Well, and that's the thing with Acuna, is like he really does just smoke the ball. Like it's like at like a at like an absurd degree.
Dude,
Like
I hope he can get back to it, man, because he's been not hitting the ball nearly as hard this
he's
season.
been he's been weird striking out a lot because that was a big thing about this year that made it happen was the fact that like I feel like a big issue when people talk about guys being 40-40 guys or like have the potential to be like a 30-30 guy or even steal a bunch of bases is the fact that can they get on first base?
Yes, you can't steal
So
first.
because exactly. So that's why like I think we forget. I mean, I think baseball people know this. I'm not breaking any ground, but Ricky Henderson stole a bunch of bases because he got on first.
Exactly.
He
Crazy
walked. He took
career
he
on
took
base
his
percentage.
some saying he got on first. Like a lot of the guys, like O'Neal Cruz, for example. O'Neal Cruz does not get on first enough, I think, to really have a crazy stolen base season.
A
Right?
hundred
As a good
percent. Not at this
Acu-
point.
Acuna though cut down the K rate so much that he was getting on first and putting himself in those opportunities. And another stat I want to throw at you is that in 2023, Acuna had 247 batted balls. So batted balls over 100 miles an hour. That is the most. That is the most in the Statcast era in a single season by almost by 45 because Vladimir Guerrero Jr. in 2021 is second.
To be honest, that to me a little bit makes me wonder why his overall numbers weren't a little better. Now, again, I'm not taking it away.
That's what I'm saying,
It really says a lot about, first of all, like how bad his defense was,
dude.
because it really was. That's the elephant in the room for like advanced people is that his defense was terrible. Like he was one of the worst outfielders in baseball, not just one of the worst. Like for an MVP, one of the worst outfielders in baseball that season.
Yeah, from the thing is though, like I feel like when on balls in the air, like his arm saves him to be like serviceable and right
Yes,
because like that's
better.
so like that's the thing. Like his arm talent makes him like not like playable. It makes him playable, right?
Yeah.
Like it's not like he's hurting the Braves to a massive degree being
Right. Not a
inverted.
DH only at this point by any
Yeah, that's what I'm
stretch.
saying. But like it is a problem because like for me, like I thought it was like here's the thing. Like I think it's a concerted effort to maybe save his body a bit more. But at the same time, there is just issues with reading. Like
Yes.
that does play a part in it. But
100%.
I think that stat is what blows my mind the most. And that's not what people are going to talk about for obvious reasons. But
Sorry.
having 247 batted balls in the triple digits in a 162 game season is dumb.
Dumb, dude. And so we agree. S tier
Yeah,
season.
easy.
So now we come to the end of this. Obviously, we've designated everybody. I have this tier list. I'm gonna download this and I can share this. But I want to say, while I do that, who are your MVP frontrunners right now? I would say start in the AL so we can finish on the NL because we did the NL today.
So in the American League, this isn't a homer pick, and it's going to sound like a homer pick, but I'm sorry. I'm going to go with Juan Soto for multiple reasons. One, I think a big reason for going Juan Soto in the AL is outside of the numbers, because he has the numbers to be the MVP. I think we can all agree on that. I think it's going to be a narrative. I think the narrative is kind of on his side as well, where it's Juan Soto got to a new city. The Yankees are the Yankees again. They're cruising, and I think if the even if the numbers are close, I still feel like Juan Soto kind of has that like kind of narrative on his side that Harper had in 2021, and that could get him the award.
I agree with that. I was actually going to say Soto was my AL MVP pick 100%. Right now, I think that he's shown more
Yeah,
power this season, more raw power this season than he's ever really shown at any point in his career. And that's going to be a huge thing, right? Because that's really, in my opinion, what's always held him back is it's like, okay, he probably is one of the most productive hitters in baseball every single season in a lot of voters' minds. He's like up there, top five, but he's always been held back by the fact, well, he's not hitting 35 dingers. He's not hitting 40 dingers, right? For a lot of older voters, those stats, those bottom line stats mean a lot. And I think this season he could easily hit 40. If he hits 35, he's probably still going to win it.
yeah. Like I feel like so the thing is right now he is for sure at the moment like the AO MVP. But like I think at the end of the year, because like the guy with him at the moment is Gunnar Henderson.
Yes.
right? But even if that help, if they're both awesome at the end of the year, I think out of like we said with Harper earlier, Soto kind of has that momentum on him and that like that extra push with the narrative. And I think that will definitely get him across the line if the numbers are good enough.
100%. So before we get into the NL MVP, I just want to like throw up this is the overall tier list that we had. Um I obviously had Kershaw in my S tier. So that was really the big difference here is that you had Kershaw in your A tier, but this is your list specifically.
Yeah, so like I'm looking at it now. I B tier perfect, I think. A tier is do I do I think?
I will say this is my one argument for
Okay.
Kershaw being an S tier. When I think of the best players of all time, and their best seasons, there's not a single guy in here that's in contention for that, except for this
Okay.
guy.
Okay. I'm gonna concede. I'm gonna put Kershaw in S tier simply because of the fact that I don't think I feel like it's it's undervaluing what he did to have him compared to like some of these guys' seasons. I'm not necessarily disrespect to them, but I think it's like you said, it's not
Exactly.
that's peak Kershaw.
It's peak Kershaw. I mean, and you again, we kind of talked to this before. Peak Kershaw is arguably the greatest pitcher of all time. You can make an
Yes.
argument that peak Pedro is better, and I get where you're coming from. The 1998 1999 Pedro is better than Kershaw ever was. I think that's pretty much without debate. But Kershaw basically had similar seasons to that, not quite to the same level, but similar seasons, similar to that for 11 years. So he did it for over a decade. Pedro could not do that, right? He couldn't quite produce that level. His body wouldn't quite let him get there. There's no one who's ever done what Kershaw is doing for the length that he did it. Even like last season was dominant, but his career ERA plus for guys that weren't born around the time where pars weren't really a thing is the best of all time, 154.
Pathos, yeah, and
Better
yeah,
than
I think it's
DeGrom.
easy yes.
And DeGrom has like 1,500 less innings, but has had
Yeah.
like insane seasons. Crazy.
Exactly. Yeah. So yeah, that's our final list. I'm okay with that.
100%. Okay, now this to me, I think opens it up for a little bit of like a
But does
interesting
it though?
conversation. This to me, I think
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
I think
Never
there's an
mind.
interesting
I'm cooked.
conversation we had here.
No, it does. No, I'm cooked.
Who are you getting given to NL MVP? Who do you think's getting to the finish line for NL MVP in
Dude,
2024? It's between two guys at this point, really.
So the thing is, we're 36 games in for
Yeah.
these guys, but what I'm trying to see is that if Ohtani's not like I'm gonna say this and blow the face. Ohtani's not going to maintain a 219 WRC plus. I mean,
Probably not, you know.
I mean, okay, but think about this. Think about this. Right now, Ohtani is a 219 WRC plus, and he's underperforming his expected numbers.
Dude, to be honest, knowing that he has another gear is actually ridiculous.
Dude, he's underperforming his expected numbers, and he is a 219 WRC plus.
Let me throw something out there. 184 was his OPS plus last year, right? That's prime Mike Trout territory. 184. Missed the last 27 games of the season. Could have had a potentially better one. Could have been worse. Well, you know, would have had 50 homers probably. This season, he has Barry Bonds level numbers. He's a 220 OPS plus. Again, he's not going to maintain that. Like you said, even though the numbers are great and he's like, he's not going to maintain that.
Okay. So here's my question. Because I think this is kind of if Shohei Ohtani has an OPS plus that is around 190, and let's say he hits close to 50 homers, what would Mookie Betts have to do to win the award?
I'd say 170 OPS plus.
And, decent defense.
Just what he's done at shortstop. If he can maintain half of that, honestly, literally.
First off, I need to get this out the way. I saw a tweet the other week that someone posted a tweet of Mookie Betts having a 0 outs above average at shortstop and said, we have to start having a conversation about Mookie not being able to play short. As listen, not even factoring in need. Because listen, if your team needs a shortstop like bad and it's a big hole for you,
Yeah,
like there's a threshold, like a zero out above average with above average hitting is awesome. Like
100%. And also,
but
too, go ahead.
one of the best if you have your shortstop is one of the best hitters in the league, and he's also a league average defender, that's a plus.
100%. But on
That's
top of
not
that,
a
dude, on top of that, too. So last season, Mookie Betts had a 0.8 D WAR. Now, again, I'm going to go to a bit more caveman stats here, just because advanced stats early in the season are difficult. Just
sure.
because, I mean, looking at the scope of what he's going to be able to accomplish over the full season, it'll read better at the end of the season. So I'm going to go with something that's a little more cumulative right now. 0.8 D WAR last year. One of the worst total marks of his career over a full season. He's had some insane seasons defensively, but it's pretty decent, especially because he moved around a lot. This season, he already has a 0.8 D WAR in 37 games. Now, he's not going to get to the, 4 or whatever that would be over a full season or, close to 4. But it shows how valuable being even a league average shortstop is when you're doing what he's doing on the other side of the ball. Now, here's the thing. He has a 195 OPS plus right now. He has not had an over 160 OPS plus any year in his career except for last year. He's not, in my opinion, I don't see him staying.
Wait, time out. Well, 2018 too, right?
Yeah, 2018. I'm sorry. Other than his MVP season, that's what I'm going to say. Other than that one season, he has not had an over 160 OPS plus. Do I see him getting to 170? I don't necessarily think so. He also is one of those guys who it's like, does he hit the ball hard? He does. He doesn't hit the ball insanely hard. He's at like a 91.3 average exit velo. He's not where Ohtani is, that's for sure.
Dude.
So I don't see him having that. However, do I see Ohtani staying at around, like you said, 190? Probably not either.
No.
But the thing is, I'm going to fanboy out a little bit. We haven't got a chance to see what Ohtani can do over a full seasoned hitting season yet in his career, right? You could say the closest one would be like 2019 when he got to play 106 games and wasn't pitching at all. But even back then, I mean, he was 24 years old. He'd been in the league one season. And again, he was obviously hurt for part of that. I don't know what a Shohei who's healthy, at least at the plate, could do over a full season. And dude, he has 9 stolen bases. Dude. Bro could be in the 30-30 club while batting 350.
I don't care. Call me any sort of glazing. I don't care. I couldn't care less. This guy has I'm gonna use a nerd stat. So xWOBA, expected WOBA.
Yeah.
But there's a reason I'm using this, because it's basically just grades your overall quality of contact, right? So Shohei Ohtani's xWOBA right now is 502. Second place, Marcell Ozuna, 460. Third place, Juan Soto, 435.
Shout out Marcell Ozuna from the Braves, by the way.
Yes, but still, he's 40 points below Ohtani. That he is so, and obviously his WRC plus is obviously 20% better than anyone else right now, but the fact that he's underperforming his expected stats and is having Bonds numbers, I know it's only been 36 games, but still, this is
still insane,
scary, because there's signs to point to that he could maintain something very scary.
Well, and I also want to point to one other huge factor here. His ground ball to fly ball ratio has never been like this. Never. He's at a 0.54 ground ball to fly ball ratio, which means that, and he's also hitting the ball in the air to right field more than he ever has. He's changed his game to take this hard hit profile that's one of the best in baseball and actually put it in a place where it can go out of the yard more. I mean, yeah, we can look at the other numbers too. Average exit velocity of 94.8, career best, 62.1% hard hit rate, off the charts, absolutely nuts. Strikeout rates, his lowest for his career. But to me, I think that like you said, I mean, there's an argument to be made that he could be better than he is now. And yeah, the power is actually only really just starting to show up. Like I said, early on in the season, wasn't hitting for the most power. He was obviously performing really well otherwise, but now he's starting to like get some of those over the wall. As a guy who could see him play live for
Mhm.
20, 25 games last year, I will not put anything past him. I won't put anything past.
No,
I
yeah.
can believe that this guy could win MVP. However, historical precedent says he's not going to because no one ever has as DH only.
Who else would be the first? Who else would do that?
If Mookie Betts goes on a prolonged slump, I don't know who else. Because who else would be in the competition? Marcelo Ozuna? Like, no. Marcelo Ozuna is a DH at this point. Like
But
he's
you know what's hilarious though is that
Bowman gonna do what he's doing all season. Good.
Otani won like 2 MVP awards, and the main argument was, oh my God, this guy pitches and hits. And this guy could win an MVP award this year, and it's the opposite. Where it's
That
like
would
this guy
silence all the
only
haters, dude.
he only hits, and he could like, dude, right now at the moment, like Ronald Acuna Jr. and Austin Riley are slumping, but like if you add their WRC pluses together, it like equals Otani's, and they have 5 homers combined.
Dude,
Like I know, like not I'm not trying to be a hater by doing that. I know, like I know it's like kind of cherry picking, but still, like that's absurd.
dude, 100%. But I think that's another like small discussion that we have to have if we're going to talk about like MVP, the MVP
That's
race
a
for
good
this
point
upcoming season is who else? Who else?
because a lot
Ozuna's
of
not going to do it.
a lot of guys you'd think are kind of starting slow, and oh my God,
Exactly.
by the way,
And we're 40 games in now. Like, I mean, starting slow, I get it, but it's also like, what is Acuna going to hit 40 homers over the next 120 games? Probably not. Like,
yeah.
that would be crazy. I'd love to see it.
And by the way, to throw it out there because we're live, but UFC is tomorrow. Speaking of MVP picks, Juan Soto is currently 3 for 3 off of Justin Verlander.
Oh, that's crazy. Dude, what's the overall score?
6-1 Yankees in the fourth.
Oh, dude. I
Yeah,
hope
no, it's
Justin
bad.
Verlander isn't done. I really want to see him. Like, I know he's
Yeah,
been
it's-
pretty decent this season, but like, I don't want to
Yeah,
see
but-
him fall out. Last season was not like Justin
He was still
Verlander.
good.
That is,
Yeah, but he was still good though.
he was still good. He was still good. But dude, maybe I'm a fanboy a little bit of Justin Verlander just because
You're
I was a
Michigan
Tiger.
guy.
I was a Tiger guy back in the day. And what he did in 2022 needs to be studied. By the
No,
way,
that's so stupid.
218 ERA plus is a 39-year-old is the devil's work, man. Like that's actually the best season of his career.
Yeah,
Like, dude.
dude.
all right, but-
yeah.
Good.
Sorry, I was gonna throw that Juan Soto haunts the Astros, man. That's
Dude,
crazy.
seriously, dude.
But okay, it's really bad,
Dude.
All
All right, man. It was great talking to you. Obviously, we had a great time putting this together. We're probably gonna do the AL Cy Young next week. Obviously, kind of finish out the quadrinity before moving on to like other topics and stuff. But I've had such a great time with this series. I hope, obviously,
Same, man.
hope everyone who's watching's had a good time with it so far, and we'll catch you next week.
Catch you next week.